We'd never seen that before. We never expected that this is how it was going to be to live here in our paradise, knowing that every flood, every cyclone, we expect that this is going to be the result.
Rowenia Osenkingi works in social services for her people, the Maori, the Indigenous population of New Zealand.
If our natural environment isn't well, that's a reflection of the people. And so I feel like that. I walk around here and I can see that our people are not well spiritually, as well as physically. And this is a reflection of how well we are as a people. This is now our reality, so how do we live with that?
Rowenia feels helpless in the face of these devastated lands of Talaga Bay. With each natural disaster, thousands of trunks of exotic pines, trees not native to New Zealand, are dumped on this beach in the north of the country. A fact that, paradoxically, has its origins in the fight against climate change. New Zealand has developed a new weapon in this battle: carbon farms. To reduce greenhouse gas emissions, the country has capitalized on its vast space, designating it for the forestry industry. With a simple principle: plant trees to absorb CO2 and then sell carbon credits to companies that emit too much. But could these carbon farms be a new plague on the environment? On the outskirts of the Southern Alps, the largest mountain range in New Zealand. Here, livestock farming is a cornerstone of the local economy. Warwick James owns one of the largest farms in the Canterbury region. For 3 generations, they have been raising a flock of 1,300 sheep. But it's in crisis. This year, meat exports have fallen by 25%.
New Zealand is an export nation of sheep and beef, lamb and beef, lamb, mutton and beef. So it depends on the international market at the time. If it's down, we sell carbon credits, and that helps balance out the ups and downs of our beef and lamb business. So.
Selling carbon credits to combat economic fluctuations is an idea that is increasingly appealing to livestock farmers. Over the past 5 years, 200,000 hectares of farms have been converted into carbon forests. Warwick is one of the first to have taken the step. Half of his property is now dedicated to carbon offsetting. Today, he is receiving a visit from a consultant linked to the Ministry of Commerce, who regularly comes to assess the amount of carbon credits Warwick can sell to foreign companies.
So this is one of the plots. So we'll just start in this one. We just do a really elementary measure at breast height.
Yeah. It's a big tree.
Yeah, big tree. Of course, the outside ones do quite well. That's
more than a metre, yeah.
112 centimetres. So these forests have permanent plots, and so we go back into those plots on a 5-yearly basis and measure the same trees, and they are representative of the whole forest. We then work out average growth rates for all those plots, extrapolate that out to the whole forest, and work out how much carbon has been absorbed or sequestered by those trees. And it's based on the volume of the tree and also the height, of course. And then that's recorded, accepted by the MPI, and you're issued the carbon based on that.
These trees are 20 to 22 years of age, and over the whole 500 hectares of trees, they are averaging 50 tonnes per hectare per year. Depends on the carbon price, but currently it's a fairly volatile market at the moment.
Even an unstable market can still bring him up to €900,000 a year, 3 times more than his income from livestock farming. What's more, it's an annual income.
Figure it afterwards, isn't it?
We're doing our part for climate change, and also becomes a business as well. So.
But this business isn't in everyone's interests. On the east coast of the North Island is the city of Gisborne and its surrounding region, known in Maori as Tairawiti. Through carbon offsets, it hopes to become the lungs of the Pacific, while also being a major producer of timber. The region exports 3 million tons of exotic pine every year from its mature carbon farms, and plans to double that number in the next 5 years. However, these exotic pines are not adapted to the local land. Their roots struggle to take hold in soil that has the highest erosion rate in the world. Last February, 2 almost consecutive cyclones led to the death of 11 people and devastated much of the region. In Tolaga Bay, a small town of 500 residents, carbon forests have caused enormous damage. Bridget and Mike Parker are among the most badly hit inhabitants.
Yep.
It's got to go somewhere.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering whether there was a specific reason that it's just coming up.
We're just making room to get more out, that's all.
Yeah, because there's a lot more to come yet, isn't there?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
This couple, both farmers, employs 11 people and usually exports 4 tons of kiwi fruits. But for the past 8 months, all they have done is clear their property.
Everything that you see was covered. We had logs that were over 20 metres long in this orchard, and those logs had come from 25 kilometres up the road. So it broke all the fencing, it came flying through, and the first logs broke this side and went back out, and then at the end of the flooding event, the logs that were here and the silt that was here just dropped and remained here. You know, it is heartbreaking to think that all this has been washed down the river to be settled into such a beautiful orchard that has now really devastated it, and we're not even sure yet whether it will recover.
In the span of 5 years, this is the 3rd time that trees from these carbon forests have ravaged their land. The government has set up an emergency fund of 30 million euros for the whole region, but Bridget claims the compensation is largely insufficient.
It is very unfair, and it means that we are going to have to borrow more money in order to just clean up the mess, and we cannot get back to farming until the mess is cleaned up. We have a farm that now seems to be the runoff for carbon farming. It's just their place where they dump their pollution, their crap. We are just simply the victims of criminals, and that's how we feel.
The courts have already sentenced several of these forestry companies. But to keep its promise of zero carbon emissions by 2050, the government continues to grant new permits for planting these exotic pines. New permits that continue to exacerbate the erosion of these hills. A few minutes' drive away, Bridget and Mike want to show us a new threat.
Interesting. Yes, now in this event, another forest has collapsed into the waterway. If we had a heavy rain warning, there are hundreds of hectares of pine trees in behind here that are on the move down this hill into the river, and they're going to head down to our homes and farms. We have a very serious situation here, and I really haven't got any answers at this stage as to how on earth we could ever stop it.
After the cyclone, nearly 1,000 farms in the region were devastated by these carbon offset forests. And that's not all. This economic and environmental disaster also affects the living conditions of the Maori people. We returned to see Rowena, whom we had met on the beach at Tolaga Bay. A few years ago, she decided to return to live on the land of her ancestors with her husband and 6 children. At home, the whole family speaks Maori. In their culture, passing down the language and culture is crucial. All her children attend a Maori language immersion school, or kura.
Me haere tātou, kōrero Māori. Papa! Hara mai. Hara mai.
Keriana is 6, and like many children from Tolaga Bay, she has never seen this region without debris.
That's the sad thing for me, is that it's becoming normal. That this is how they live. It's normal for them to expect big rains and then know that we're likely to have a whole heap of woody debris on our beaches, and that it's normal that there be no power, that they won't be able to go to school. So that impacts on their learning and their connection to their natural environment. Oh.
In this primary school, education involves an in-depth understanding of the environment.
Kōreroa ko ka pearl, haha ai kei te tipu whakararo ona rau.
This morning, they are discovering the flora of the region with the teacher, with the entire class in the Maori language.
O he pātai tāku ko ai kei te maumahara, tētahi ingoa o tētahi o aua rākau. Mehemea kei te maumahara koe, whakatū mai tō ringa. Tētahi o aua rākau I whakatō Keriana?
Kōwhai.
Kōwhai, tū meke, ka tuhi mai a kokaki konei, I whakatō tātou he kōwhai. Kei te moia tātou he pai te rākau kōwhai mo te aha? Mo tō tinana?
Mo te kiriru.
O, kaua ko te kiriru he rākau anō tērā, ka pai?
As they do every day of the week, the children do kapa haka practice. These traditional songs and dances are pillars of Maori identity. But for several years now, it has been difficult for teachers to apply the school curriculum. Tanya Hunter is the principal of the Mangatuna School, which means the river of eels in Maori.
We've been restricted, it's crazy. 5 to 10 years ago, things that I was doing with the students then, they're not the same things we're doing now. We're a rural kura Māori. Most of what we do in our local curriculum, obviously, this is my local area. We're a taiao kura, an enviro kura. We're out and about doing things in our community, in our local environment. The thing is, my environment is not the same as it was 5 years ago. Māori are people of the land, of the river, of the ocean. It's a part of our history, it's part of our DNA, it's part of our makeup. It's kind of been stolen from us, I guess, because we no longer have the opportunity to provide those experiences for tamariki to go to the river. The forestry industry has ruined that for us. I can't teach that anymore. It can't be in our local curriculum. They've ruined it for everybody.
Last January, wooden debris even led to the death of a child playing on the beach. After school, Rowena takes us back to the seaside. She believes that measures to manage these disasters fall short of what the situation demands.
This is all the slash, the woody debris that's come off the hills in the back there. So this is the response to the cleanup. So the idea is to pick up everything that's on the sand, on the beaches, and in the interim store it here. In the past, incineration has been the option. So we had piles and piles of logs all along the beach that were burnt. And for us here, we're not happy with that as a solution.
During the last cyclone, 70,000 tons of trees washed up on the east coast of the country. But before it can be cleared, a lot of debris ends up at the bottom of the water and threatens a large part of the seabed.
So the logs are coming down this river and then shooting out into the river mouth and then being spewed all along both sides of the bay, which is suffocating the crayfish and the pawa and the kina. And that for us is our kai resource. And with that means that it debilitates us from being able to access kai that we've been eating for hundreds of years. And that means that's a whole generation of kai that our children will no longer have access to.
A few months ago, Rowenia launched a petition to the government. On behalf of her community, she wants an independent investigation to shed light on the consequences of these carbon farms. The Minister of Forestry rejected the initiative. But another voice has risen above the chaos. Renee Roa is an activist.
And what's Tessa's role?
For several years, she has been denouncing the methods of the forestry industry. Today, in the middle of the legislative election campaigns, she is attending a meeting with the candidates to address these issues.
We've got people who have come close to death or have lost their homes on the coast. So slash is the issue.
Kia ora koutou. My partai is about land use and emissions trading schemes. Obviously, we've seen some unintended consequences based on our land use decisions that we've made in the past and maybe continue to make. What is your party's policy around the emissions trading scheme, and what might you do to ensure that perverse incentives don't lead us down the same path in the future?
We have to work together as a community on what that looks like in the transition period for what forestry will look like going forward in our region, but also, we do need it.
We don't want to turn our back on the forestry sector. It has got a place in our economy here locally, especially up in Tairāwhiti. There are many people employed in forestry, but the forestry industry themselves have said that we need to do better on that front.
Politicians are somewhat embarrassed. It's difficult to fight against the economic power of carbon credits and timber exports. Last year, they brought in over €5 billion for New Zealand. But Renee refuses to give up. Last March, she went to plead her case at the United Nations headquarters in New York during an Indigenous Peoples Forum.
What is going to be some of the most valuable data?
We emphatically oppose carbon credits from pine as a climate solution. The pine industry, in conjunction with the New Zealand Crown Government, is jointly responsible for multiple Indigenous rights violations.
We needed to make sure to have our voice heard at a global scale and to really send a strong signal that we weren't going away, we weren't going to just be satisfied with small actions, that we need big change.
But the forestry industry refuses to be singled out. Its leaders claim the problem is more complex. In Wellington, the capital of New Zealand, are the offices of the country's largest forest owners association. We met the director, Elizabeth Heeg. She was one of the major players in introducing carbon offsets in the country. In her view, you can't overlook the coastline's unique geology.
After colonization, people came in with several different ideas about what would work really well. And in a lot of cases, they didn't nuance those ideas. So what used to be there was native forest, obviously, which is what most of the environments in New Zealand started off as. With that being deforested for then farming, and the really highly erosion-prone soils in the Tairāwhiti region, it ended up being the worst choice anyone could have made to deforest those and to have those then exposed. So in the 1980s, after a big cyclone event, there was movement to get that area back into trees, and they picked something really fast growing, which was ostensibly at the time for erosion control, and that was pine. In the Gisborne region, they tried it on an almost regional scale, and they only tried one thing, and then in some places it's turned out to not be appropriate.
However, there are other ways to store carbon, by preserving and enhancing native forests. This is what Renee is doing on her father's land.
Oh, you want to have a look?
Oh,
Yeah.
Yep. So there's little pegs here. Yeah, we see we've planted a few of those up the hill.
Young trees that will serve as a base for developing new, sustainable models. On a 900-hectare plot owned by Maui, Renee wants to show that a return to indigenous plants is still the best solution, because monoculture forests are fragile, deplete the soils, and don't work in harmony with local wildlife. In contrast, New Zealand's endemic forests are true ecosystems where biodiversity can thrive. This morning, Renee and her family are going to plant these young tree seedlings.
And then find a hole, like this one. Yep. And then just push it in with your gumboot like that so that it comes together a little bit. I can come behind you anyway. Yep. Choice. What we're planting are manuka to help with the erosion of the river that we're seeing. These manuka are also all across the area here, and they'll be one of the first tree types to start regenerating on the majority of the land block. We hope with this project that Fenua Maldi can create an investment model for itself, and this will be the first, hopefully, of many other projects of its kind.
And the recent United Nations report could give them a boost. The carbon footprint of exotic pines could be worse than expected because of the sale of wood from monocultures.
Well, there is sequestration that's measurable from our plantation forests, our exotic forests. Actually, the practices that come around these mean that there are supply chain carbon emissions that aren't counted. So for a lot of our pine industry, our exotic timber industry here, most of that goes offshore. So we don't do a lot of processing in region, but what we're not counting when we're counting the sequestration of those forests is the carbon that's emitted through the transport supply chains and the production that's happening offshore.
Pine farms could actually release twice as much carbon into the atmosphere as they absorb. But with the promise of a world free from CO2 emissions by 2050, the price of carbon credits will increase fivefold in the next 20 years. And New Zealand does not intend to give up on this windfall. In 5 years, the country will reach 2 million hectares of forests aimed at carbon offsetting.